welcome to the last one in Psychology. Unit 2, its individual differences.
Hooray!
I'm Liam.
And I'm Joe.
And today we bring you psychopathology or abnormality. So we're going to kick off with some definitions of abnormality. First we have a deviation from social norms.
Right, deviation from social norms. There are rules in society about what is normal. Behavior is abnormal if you deviate from this. That's the idea of social norms.
So this can be criticised in many ways. Moral standards that vary over time. They do vary over time. So, for example, well, actually, I don't have an example. Cultural relativism. We have an example of Afro-Caribbeans are 3 times more likely to be diagnosed as schizophrenic, as apparently some things that class you as schizophrenic are actually looked as good in their culture. For example, things like, I don't know, weird things that we might see a bit weird, like thinking you can see a being that doesn't actually exist when actually they might think it's good because it's like some spiritual thing, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Most people also break social norms at some point, which would deem them as abnormal, but if most people do it, then it's just a flaw in the logic.
Yeah, and also social control is used to diagnose people you disapprove of.
So that's when therapists disapprove of a client and will diagnose the client as deviating from social norms.
And as with all of these definitions, they're not actually a universal definition. It doesn't bring everything together.
Yeah, it doesn't account for all abnormality.
Exactly. Second definition is failure to function adequately.
Behaviors that prevent people from coping with everyday life. For example, OCD sufferers have lots of tics and impulses that sort of get in the way of their day-to-day regime.
Yep. Rosenhan and Seligman, I believe that's
FFA characteristics.
Yeah, they came up with some of these failure to functioning adequately characteristics, which you will need to describe in an essay if you had this.
These are suffering, unconventionality. You can do,
unconventionality of behavior,
observer discomfort,
unpredictability,
irrationality and incomprehensibility,
maladaptiveness,
violation of moral standards.
Okay, and we have the GAF assessment thing. It stands for the Global Assessment of Functioning, which we use to assess this. So if you have a score from 10 to 100, well, that's what they're scored at. If you get 10, you're likely to be suicidal. 60, you're moderate anxiety, and 100 means you are superior. So basically, the lower the score, the more abnormal you are.
There are a few problems with this. For example, it involves subjective judgment.
It does also. Many normal, I say that in inverted commas, people are actually fail to function adequately. For example, stress of an exam, this exam maybe. Also, if you lose a loved one, you're probably going to, show some of these characteristics.
Yeah, there are some cultural issues too. Ethnic minority brings extra... being an ethnic minority brings extra stress. I thought Liam had written racist notes then.
No, I hadn't. That's true. Not the racist notes. Ignore that. Another definition you need to know is deviation from ideal mental health.
Criteria of good mental health include a positive self-attitude, achieving one's potential, ability to resist stress, personal autonomy, so independence, accurate perception of reality, and ability to adapt to one's environment.
This is not very good because it's a very demanding criteria, so most people would probably be considered abnormal here. You're not always going to have a positive self-attitude, you're not always going to be able to resist stress. It's also suggested that normal, again in inverted commas, people do not have an accurate perception of reality. So studies have actually found that depressed people are more accurate, as normal people create positive illusions, is what they call things, to protect them from reality. So basically, we're all living in a slight dream world because we're thinking things are better than they actually are. Depressed people are actually more accurate. Yeah, that's called positive illusions. Also, we have perception of reality that changes over time. So, for example, we once thought the Earth was flat. So, if you were back in those times and said that the Earth is round, then you would probably be considered to be abnormal. But nowadays, you wouldn't, because we all know the Earth is round. And finally, cultural relativism again. It's ethnocentric, as it's obviously based on an individualist cultures like the US, for example. The visions are a blessing in some cultures. If you have a vision.
Yes. Okay,
and that concludes the first one, which is your definitions of abnormality.
See you in the next one.